The call that shattered my world. They say bad news travels fast. But no one tells you how it feels when it crashes into your life like a runaway truck. I was in my workshop that afternoon, elbows deep in an old Toyota engine, sweat crawling down my back like tiny snakes. The air smelled of hot metal, gasoline, and frustration. I had just about managed to wrestle the stubborn cylinder head loose when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. Customers didn't call me during work hours unless it was urgent. But something in my gut told me to answer. I wiped my greasy hands on my overalls, picked up the phone, and pressed it to my ear. Emma. The voice on the other end was sharp, cold, like the blade of a knife. It was her. My stepmother. Your father is dead. I am taking my share of the inheritance. You need to get out of the house. The world tilted. I gripped the edge of the car hood to steady myself. The heat of Lagos, the noise of the bustling street outside, the scent of oil and rubber, everything blurred into nothing. What did you say? My voice was barely a whisper. She sighed, as if she was irritated, as if I was some fly buzzing around her ears. Your father is dead, Emma. And this house? It belongs to me now. I want you gone before the end of the week. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it, hoping, praying, that I had heard wrong. But the voice in my head was clear. She is throwing you out. After everything. Something inside me snapped. You can't do this. That house is my father's. It's my home. She laughed. A dry, humorless sound that made my skin crawl. It was his home. But now, it belongs to me. And I don't care where you go, Emma. Just be gone. Then the line went dead. I stood there for a long time, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. And then, without a word, I walked out of the workshop. A house that was never mine. By the time I reached the house, the sun was hanging low in the sky, casting long, bleeding shadows across the dusty streets. I pushed open the rusty gate and stepped inside. The house was exactly as I had left it that morning, small, old, but filled with memories. The cracked walls held the echoes of my father's voice, his laughter, his anger. The air still carried the scent of his herbal medicine, the faint trace of palm oil from last night's dinner. But something was different. Something was wrong. And then I saw them. Men. 3 of them, standing in the living room like vultures, their hands stuffed into the pockets of cheap suits. My stepmother sat on the couch, sipping from a glass of wine as if she were hosting a dinner party.
She looked up when I entered, eyes glinting like broken glass. You're back early. Who are they? I asked, my voice tight. She shrugged. Lawyers, appraisers, people who will make sure I get what is rightfully mine. I felt my fists clench. What is rightfully yours? This is my home. She sighed, as if this was all terribly inconvenient. Emma, you're a mechanic. You don't have money. You don't have power. What you do have is a problem. And that problem is standing in my house. I took a step forward. My father wouldn't have wanted this. Her lips curled into a smirk. Your father isn't here, is he? Silence. Thick, heavy, suffocating. And then one of the men, tall, built like a wall, took a step toward me. You need to leave, son. His voice was deep, slow, deliberate. We don't want any trouble. Trouble. The word echoed in my skull. I am alone. No one is coming to help me. I turned to my stepmother. You will regret this. She only smiled. I already don't. I turned and walked out. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. A dead man's secrets. I didn't go back to the workshop. I couldn't. Instead, I wandered the streets, my mind racing. I had nothing, no money, no family, no home, but my father had been a smart man. He must have left something behind. A will, a document, anything. And then it hit me. The old wooden box. It had always been there, locked away in my father's room. He never let anyone touch it. He said it contained the truth. I had to find it before she did. By the time I made it back to the house, it was dark. The men were gone. My stepmother was upstairs, probably drowning in celebration. I slipped in through the back door. Every creaking floorboard, every rustling curtain felt like an alarm screaming my presence. I made it to my father's room, heart pounding. The box was still there, hidden under the old bookshelf, dusty, locked. I pried it open with a screwdriver. And then I saw them. Documents. Land deeds, bank statements. A handwritten letter. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter. Emma, if you're reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. Your stepmother is not who she claims to be. She will take everything if you let her. But you must not let her win. The house is yours. The land is yours. And inside this box you will find what you need to fight back. The papers in my hand suddenly felt heavier. I had a weapon, and now it was time to use it. The fight begins. By morning, I was at the lawyer's office, a small, dusty place filled with the scent of old paper and forgotten battles. The man behind the desk looked at the documents, his face unreadable. This changes everything. I nodded. I know. He leaned back, exhaling. Your stepmother won't go down without a fight. Neither will I. He smiled. Then let's take back what's yours. I walked out of that office with a plan. I wasn't just going to fight. I was going to win, and when I did, she would regret ever making that call. This isn't just a story of loss. This is a story of war, and I am just getting started.